Beauty comes in all shapes, sizes, colors, and forms. My life is about bringing out that beauty in everything and helping others do the same. Hello everyone, my name is Jewel, the owner, designer, and creator behind Shabby Boutique. If you want to see how I make my creations, the products I use, and how you can create your own home decor from new, thrifted, or found items, then keep watching. Okay, so for the next project, I am going to pour some molds. You can use, these are food safe. You can use them for cookie dough, or you can use them for with resin. You can use them with clay. You can use them with soap, with chocolate, whatever your little heart's desire, anything that you can cast. You could also, some people have used the UV resin in these, and you can basically, you would just do it in layers. You can't pour the whole thing at once. But yeah, I recently found this. There's different brands, and basically it's I can't remember what it is. Jasminite or something. I can't think of what it is. But it is they call it a casting resin. It's kind of like a plaster of Paris in a way. But has, I guess, more properties kind of similar to porcelain. So I recently found this, and if I'm doing this on a flat surface, like I'm going to be using them, you can use this on there. If you're doing it obviously on a curved surface, you can use regular resin, because when that's soft, it's pliable and you can wrap it around, or clay. But for my purpose, it's going to be rigid and it's going to be on a flat surface. The one thing I like about this is you can demold it in 20 minutes, glue it on, and start painting. So it's quick, it's easy. A little more cost effective than regular resin, which is the other thing. So I'm going to be using this to pour some castings. All right, with this, you should weigh it. And I usually do like 200 grams or 100 grams, sorry, of the powder. And then you should do 30 grams of water, but I found that if I do 32 grams of water, that it gives you just a touch more play time, because this stuff does set up really, really quickly. And if you're off a slight bit, you're fine. It's not going to hurt anything. You just don't want to be too far off. And then this is just regular tap water, room temperature. I just refill my bottle, makes it easy. And when I'm pouring a mold, I'm wanting some of the pieces from here, but I always go ahead. All right, well, I guess I'm going to do 200 because I just over poured. So let me go to 64, and then I will add more of the resin-crete. See, this is why I can't talk and do things at the same time. I lose my concentration. All right, so let me add 100 more grams of this, and we'll just do a double batch. I could probably fill it all then. Anyway, anytime I am making molds, I always get out, in case I have extra, I always get out extra molds, set them aside so that they are ready and I don't have to go trying to find them. And then I just use a cheap spatula to stir it You do want to make sure that you get it stirred really well. It will be pretty runny. You could use a little whisk, or I actually have one of those little frothers somewhere that I use also with my milk paint, which you could actually, you can put like milk paint in here if you wanted to color it. They have dyes that you can buy, or I think you can just use like acrylic craft paint or whatever, as long as you're not using too much. So I think that is good. Okay, and then I will tap it just to get out any excess air bubbles, and then I will start pouring. I kind of pinch it. It is pretty self-leveling for the most part. Okay, and it is a little bunched up here. So I just kind of take and pull it where it needs to go. I think I got a little much up there, so I'm just trying to pull it more down here. Okay. And I'm gonna do some of these little berries. And then again, I will just pull that into the areas that it needs to go into. And then I'm going to go ahead and pour some of these ornaments, or the brooches, from the Vintage Brooches mold. And if you're putting this on a flat surface, then you don't want to over pour, because you want to make sure your back is flat. But if you're going to use them single as like ornaments, you can over pour slightly, and then that'll give you a little more thickness so that they are a little more rigid, have a little more to them. But as you can see, it is starting to thicken up, so I need to hurry up and pour these. And drag it into those little crevices. Okay, so we will wait 10 minutes and demold. Okay, so now this frame is what I'm going to be using those berry casts with. So I am going to pull everything out of it. Guessing somebody made this frame in 1981. I'm going to pull all of this off and clean it up. Well, I was going to take the glass out, but apparently the glass is glued in, so we're good. It doesn't matter because I'm going to be painting the glass anyway, so let's clean this up. This is pretty rough. So I'm guessing this was a shop class project. Very dusty. I think I paid $2 for this frame. I don't even really need to do the back of the glass. I am going to clean the glass with a little bit of alcohol to make sure that the paint sticks. Okay. And I am going to paint this And White Swan. Since this will take a couple coats, and my molds are already white, so they will really only take one coat, then I am going to go ahead and start painting and then glue my mold on later. I like to get my paint on first and then go over and even out my brush strokes. Okay. I don't know why I have my paint over there. All right. Okay, and for a second coat, especially on the glass, you want to make sure your paint's dry, since water does reactivate the paint. So you're not pulling off what you just painted as you paint. Okay, there's a few little spots like here where you can kind of see some of the wood poking through, but for the most part, one thing I love about DIY is it's usually 1 or 2 coat coverage. You might have a few little spots here and there. Alright, flip it over and paint the back. And as usual, I will always go around the edge with my finger just to knock down any paint buildup so you don't get the ridges around the sides. Okay, I'm going to set this aside to completely dry. Okay, next, I am going to take my Kindest Regards IOD stamp, and I am going to stamp some gray ink on it. And for this part, whoops, it doesn't have to be perfect. As a matter of fact, sometimes once I get all the ink on it, I will actually go in with a paper towel and remove the ink in spots so that it gives it that worn, aged look. This is just a piece of plain tissue paper. It does have the shiny side. I'm going to stamp on the dull side, not the shiny side. And then I will take my stamp and put it down. Lift it up. And then I will set it aside to dry for a few. While that is drying, I will go ahead and demold all of my molds. Look at that. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. But these just pop right out. Like I said, the detail on these are incredible. Look at that. They are absolutely gorgeous. All right, set that aside. And then for our berries. Now these, I know these are gonna crack because there's some really thin spots in here, but that is fine because if they crack, how I'm putting them together, they're gonna glue together and you're not even gonna know that it's cracked. But I like to kind of put my hands under my mold and pull my edges away first. And just like with the clay, you kind of want to roll it and then you get the least amount of cracking. This stuff is still not fully cured. Look at that. Look at those details. So pretty. So yeah, this one cracked. Like I said, not a big deal. Once we glue it in the center of that frame, you will never know the difference. Take that little piece out. Hopefully I don't lose it. And then take the rest of these pieces of berries. Oh, the little stem broke off of that one. But again, that's fine. I had a feeling that was going to happen because it's so thin. And this stuff is, like, if you over pour it a little bit, this stuff, like here, I over poured it. If you pull it out of the molds before it's cured, you can literally just take your finger and go like that around the edges and it'll come right off. Or if it's completely cured, you can actually sand it. But I usually just take my fingernail and kind of go like that. Those are so good. All right, I'm gonna set these aside so that they can start drying on the top. And then we will go to our next step. Okay, so now that our paint is all dry, I am going to take that tissue paper that we stamped and place that on there, and then just kind of get a rough idea of where I need to cut it. And actually, I'm just kind of going around and cutting it with my fingernail. I know, fingernails are not tools. But sometimes you could just take a pair of scissors too, or an X-Acto knife, and push it down. As well. Okay. Take my Sweet Pickin' satin top coat again. Oops. You can miss this a little bit. What did I do with my mustard? I just misted it very, very lightly. Paper when you get it wet, whether it's decoupage medium or water or whatever, the fibers will stretch. And so if you wet it a little bit first before you start decoupaging on something especially this thin, it usually helps. So you don't get as many wrinkles. And again, on this one, if I could take the glass out, I would have did the iron-on method, because then you're sure to not get wrinkles. But you want a decent amount on there. And then lay it in. And I'm using my brush to push that down into the medium. And I don't mind the wrinkles. But again, just like with the other papers and how I've taught you before, as long as the top of your paper is wet, your fingers will slide, which is why I prefer to decoupage with a top coat or something thinner such as this, rather than with decoupage or the Mod Podge. Because you can actually take your finger and push it down. Alright, that is good. I don't, like I said, on this project I don't mind the wrinkles and stuff anyway, so. As I start pushing the wrinkles down. Okay, now while this is drying, we are going to work on our little berries. I'm going to get out my White Swan paint again. And I'm going to use a smaller brush so I can get into the details. And one coat of White Swan will be fine for these, like I said, because they're white and White Swan is so thick and pigmented. One coat will be plenty. Now if you were painting this a different color, you might want to go with 2 coats, but I think for our purpose today, 1 coat will be fine. And when I'm doing details like this, I like to kind of swirl my brush because it gets down in those little nooks and crannies easier. Okay, I'm going to set these aside to finish drying. Alright, so we're going to take this frame, or that brooch, from the molds that I created, and I think we're going to add this to it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this up as well. As I craft, I will start with a preliminary vision of what I want or what I want to do, but as I create the projects, it's almost like it speaks to me and it says, hey, no, don't do that, do this. So even though I start with one vision, once I start doing it, either I will be like, oh yeah, I could do this instead, or like I said, as I'm creating, my mind is still going. So I'm constantly kind of changing the direction of where I go, but that's just part of the creative process. Like I said, I'm a very visual person. So as I start creating it and I actually start physically seeing it besides in my mind, then that's when more ideas come to me or other things I could try. So if you're a creative person, you completely understand what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to set that off to dry, and then you will see what I'm going to do with that in a bit. Okay, so I am going to pull out that same piece of tissue paper that I used a while ago. And I am going to take one of the Brambles and Berries stamp. Now, since this is a fresh stamp, I will sand it. It just helps the ink. Since it's not necessarily a slick surface, but if you just rough it up just a touch with a sanding block or a piece of sandpaper, the ink will stick to it better. So you can pick up more ink and get a crisper image. So I'm just going to take, this is a 100 grit, and I like to go in one direction and do a couple passes, and then I like to flip it over and go in the opposite direction and do a pass. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Anyway, I'm going to take the stamp, and I think I'm going to take this one here in the middle. And I am going to ink it up. As usual, I will stamp it on my paper first. I call it kind of priming the stamp just to make sure that I've got a good image. And then these are really sticky feeling, so your hands don't really slide over them. So what I usually do is take the stamp, put it onto the paper, put a piece of paper over top of it, and then I can actually rub around the entire stamp to get a good image. Just like that. And I am going to go ahead and cut this out. Just kind of a roundabout. Just so it's not on this big sheet of paper. And that is ready to go when we are ready for it. I'm going to dry this off. And make sure it's dry. And then I'm going to center that where I want it. Give me a guide of where I need to cut it out. Now remember, since this is a curved surface, you want to go from the middle and work your way out to make your circle to give you a more accurate image. Okay, now that I have that, I can cut that out. And then I need a little bit more Now again, if you wanted to, you could take some colored pencils or watercolor and color that in. All right, and then I'm going to cut a few little snippets around the edge, and that will help with that rounded edge and help keep you from getting so many wrinkles. Okay, and a light mist. Just so that the fibers can expand. And I'm using a satin finish because I don't have any more of my matte finish. I used it up the other day, so I need to order some more. But if even with the satin finish, it's not that glossy or shiny. But if you wanted to, you could do the entire thing, finish it in the satin or a matte clear coat, and then on the face of the brooch you could do a couple coats of a good gloss, which the Sweet Pickins gloss one is really good. Couple coats of that, and it will make the center section look like porcelain or china. It's so pretty, having the contrast between the two finishes. Okay, now that this is all dry, it's a little wet. Let's do okay, much better. So now we're going to start laying this out and kind of get a feel for where we want everything. And then this, I want to put somewhere up here. And then I wound up dropping this and so some pieces kind of broke off a little bit. But again, once we glue it, you're never even gonna notice. I think that looks good. Maybe move this all over just a touch, so it's a little more centered. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of Eileen's Tacky Glue. I must have hit it with my ring. I should take my my rings off. They always, especially this one, it always, if I hit it like paint or whatever, it always like leaves a thing. I will touch that up after a while. Anyway, so now that I have everything in place how I want it, I'm going to take a little bit of tacky glue. Okay, everything's glued on, so I'm going to set this aside to dry, and then we will work on the next step. Okay, now that everything is dry, the glue and everything is dry, I'm going to wax everything. Now, I'm gonna grab my clean rag, buff off any excess. Now I'm gonna take a little bit of black wax, get it all in the corners and the creases and the nooks and the crannies. We're getting into the little tiny areas. I use just a little artist brush. Okay, and then make sure you turn and look different directions. Make sure you got all the nooks and crannies. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start rubbing off. And if you're having issues getting some wax off certain areas, nothing erases wax like wax. But look at all that detail pop out in those leaves and in those berries. Okay, back to my bigger brush. And if there's areas where you want to erase a little bit of your wax, just get a little clear wax. And this, I want it to be a little highlighted so it stands out a little more. And the very tops of the flowers and the berries to stand out a little bit more. All right, looks good. And the last thing I'm going to do is just do a quick coat over this. I want the back to match, but nobody's really going to see it. Again, I'm going to cover it with paper, craft paper. So but I don't want it to look odd either. And just an FYI, Gorilla Glue in the tube and tacky glue will also, if you let this sit for a day, the tacky glue and the Gorilla Glue will both adhere to a thin coat of wax. I mean, there was barely any on my brush, and I'd wiped the majority of the clear wax off, so when I put the paper on, I'll probably just use tacky glue to hold it down on the back. Kind of just wipe off the extra. that is done. Now, it wouldn't be me if I didn't add my gold. The one thing that me and Kasha have in common is just a little bit of gold here and there. So I kind of put it on and kind of rub it off a little bit with my fingers so it's not too much. Just a hint. And then I will do the same on the frame. And just kind of on the tips of the leaves. Around the edges of the flowers a little bit. And then just a touch on the berries. Around the outside of the frame. Again, a very light touch. I'm just looking for just a hint of gold. Not overpowering. So it looks like it's worn away. And then do the same on the outer edge. And it helps that it's kind of been sitting out for a while, so it's a little thicker, stiffer. So it makes it easier for me to get just a hint rather than it being too thick. Like I said, I do like to put a little heavier around the corners and like on the points. it's done. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something. I also wanted to let you guys know that if you are in the St. Louis, Missouri area, I do have all 3 products now in both of my Painted Tree booths. There is a Painted Tree Boutiques located in Maplewood, Missouri, and one located in Ballwin, Missouri. If you've never been to a Painted Tree, it is a bunch of vendors or artisans or whatever you want to call us, under one roof. So it's kind of like going to a mall, but you only have to go to one building and you don't have to like walk hundreds of miles to get everything you need. It's all under one roof. But in the Painted Tree locations, I do have the Sweet Pickins Milk Paint and all of their products, top coats, waxes, etc. I also carry the DIY paint, cottage color, painterly paints, all the waxes, top coats, etc. And then I also carry IOD. I carry all the molds, all the, transfers, all the stamps, the inks and the clay and everything. Basically, whatever you need for a DIY project, you can pretty much get in my booth. I carry the brushes, both Klingon brushes, basic brushes, the DIY brushes. Like I said, I pretty much carry everything in my booth. So if you are in the St. Louis area and would like to make that purchase, come on over, and if you have any questions, you can contact me. If there's something that you go to my booth and I don't have in stock, or if you call me and ask if I have something in stock. If I don't have it in stock, then I will be more than happy to order it for you if I can. And I can also tell you if I have something in stock and which store. If you are not local to the St. Louis area, then you can go to the Shabby Boutique 2TOO.etsy.com and you can purchase all the DIY supplies there. If you would like to purchase any of my handmade items, you can go to theshabbyboutique.etsy.com to purchase those there. Again, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram. You can follow me here if you like. Again, I don't know, posting wise. Hopefully things are starting to slow down a little bit. So I should hopefully be posting a little more regularly. I guess I bid you a good day, and I will see you soon. Let me know what you think of this project, and if you have any questions or something in particular you would like to see me make, or a product in particular you would like to see me use, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you ever so much for watching, and until we meet again, have a most serendipitous day. Hugs to all. Love, Jewel.